Hello and welcome to the 52 Coffees podcast. I am Cindee Williams, your host, and I am thrilled that you are here with us today. I have a fantastic guest. Every week, I have on extraordinary women who are just living exceptional lives, who are advancing daily, who are achieving their dreams. Before we get started, I want you to know that the 52 Coffees podcast is hosted by Lead My Life, which is a dynamic coaching community for women who are just ready to unlock the life of their dreams. So if you want to know more about that, go to leadmylife.com and we would love you to be a part of our community. So today, I am going to introduce our guest. She is all the way on the other side of the United States from the East Coast today in Virginia. And she has really a fascinating background, and I'm so excited to hear her story and find out more about what she does. So we have with us Sharon Burnham. Hello, Sharon.
Hi.
Hello. We got you for a second there. We keep glitching in and out, but can you just give us a little bit about your background? It's so fascinating. You were assistant U.S. attorney and what you're doing now, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, certainly. And I'm so sorry my video isn't cooperating with us today.
That's
I'd love
okay.
to feel like I'm connecting with your audience as I am with you. So
No.
I grew up in Southern California in a gardening household. And that's where I got my love of plants initially. But I was really a science nerd growing up. I loved doing the deep dive into science. So I studied chemistry. That was what my undergraduate degree was in. Went to graduate school in marine organic chemistry out in Hawaii. And it wasn't until after I was working as a chemist for the Navy that I started to maybe rethink my long-term career goals and went to law school out there in Hawaii. And that became my full-time profession, as I progressed through my adult years, you might say.
Yeah.
But there came a time where I started rethinking that and what is it that I want to think about for long term,
Mm-hmm.
and went back to my love of gardening, which I had nurtured all my life,
Yeah.
and realized that all of the study I had been doing maybe could be put to a broader purpose rather
Mm-hmm.
than just my own gardening life. So before I retired from the U.S. Attorney's Office, I started a business I called Garden Vitals, and retired from the U.S. Attorney's Office and now do that project full time, although with a lot of side work at the same time, a lot of side activities.
Right. There's always a lot of side activities.
Yes, yes,
That's just
indeed.
part of life. Part of life. How long were you with the U.S. Attorney's Office?
So I was in private practice initially for four
Okay.
years and then
Okay.
recruited to go into the U.S. Attorney's
Oh,
Office.
okay.
And so I was with them a total of 25 years. Uh,
Wow.
I started on the civil side, so representing the United States when it was sued, or if we were pursuing a civil action against a
Mhm.
company for not following regulations, for example. But then I switched over to the criminal side. So most of my practice there was prosecuting people for crime. And
Wow.
hoping that we were making the world a better place.
Yes, I believe you were for sure. That is a tough job. So kudos to you. Tell me a little bit because we share the love of gardening, and it's been a thread throughout my entire life. But tell me a little bit about growing up in Southern California and just nurturing that love of gardening.
Yes, certainly. So my parents had kind of very differing approaches to it. My mother certainly focused on flowers and doing kind of a deep dive into a particular flower at a time. So she grew
Mm.
begonias for a long time, grew orchids for a long time, irises. And so she would have deep collections in a certain plant that she was in love with. And then my father was in love with his lawn, like what Yeah, that was certainly the norm, wasn't it?
Yes, yes.
And he too would do a deep dive into all the mechanics of taking care of a lawn. And so I think that's why my approach to gardening has always been doing the deep dive, doing the research,
Right.
really studying something. And I think that's what I bring to my work in Garden Vitals.
Right. That kind of completes the picture for me. Just knowing behind the scenes what it is that you do. My mom and dad had hardware stores growing up, with a nursery. And same thing, my dad would always be out there nurturing the lawn, making sure, it was the envy of the neighborhood. And my mom was always just planting these beautiful flowers. She had such a green thumb. And I just remember growing up, just being able to help them and plant the annuals and just be a part of the whole process. So we share that. You said you kind of carried it with you throughout your life. How did that love of gardening kind of continue into your adulthood?
Well, I was kind of that kid in college who always hauled plants back and forth. And so I just have never lived without plants. I lived in Hawaii for a long time, and that's where I started to learn more about the basics of landscape design, but of course, all with tropical plants.
Mhm.
And so when I moved here to Roanoke, Virginia in 1997, I had to, in a sense, start over again and learn the plant life here. And so that's what propelled me forward into the study of even deeper aspects of landscape design and putting plants together. And then that progressed into the study of native plants but I've always applied that to my own property, of course, and wanted to share that with other people as well.
Right, right. I love it. It is a study, and it is just like you mentioned. When you move from one climate to another, it's like starting off at ground zero, because you know all the things that work in your garden and with your weather system and all that, and you move someplace different, and it's you just can't plant the same things. So
Yeah.
I totally see that, and applying just that whole science background to it too. That's so beautiful. I can totally see that. Now, you transitioned from this law career in the U.S. Attorney's Office into gardening and going, hey, you know what? Maybe I could do something with this. Maybe I can take this gift, this love that I have, and actually create a business out of it. So tell us a little bit about what Garden Vitals does. What do you do in your work, in your business?
Well, one of the smarter things I did when I was thinking about actually starting a business was to work with our local small business administration
Mhm.
office and putting together a business plan that might make sense. And at that time, I actually was focused more on helping people maintain their yards better, and that was my initial business idea. What I realized, though, is for many people, they just really needed somebody to help them figure out what to do with that problem spot in their yard. Why was a plant not doing well? Why are they not happy with the work that they've done? So my client is typically somebody who is trying to do what they can to beautify their yard, and
Mhm.
they just need somebody to uh, help them figure out what the path is to more satisfaction from their yard. So it's a one-on-one consultation, typically about an hour and a quarter for a normal sized lot. And we start with their problem areas. And
Mm.
I ask them questions about what they like, what they don't like, what's in their head as to where they want to go with it. And I'm also always looking for things they hadn't thought about, that
Right.
maybe combining two beds together would give a more satisfying uniform appearance.
Yeah.
And I just love that moment where they say, "Oh, I hadn't thought of that."
Yeah, yeah, just the combination of things. I have to ask you before I move forward, because I have a couple of questions for you. When you go to an amusement park like Disneyland or something, is it the landscaping that fascinates you the most? Am I the only person?
Well, you can tell by my laugh that that's exactly
Yeah,
right. I
yeah,
don't even get out of a car when I pull up someplace
yeah,
without looking already at their plantings and
yeah.
critiquing it.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me, all the different textures. And you were talking about the combinations of plants. And it's like I could go there with go to Disneyland with just a notepad and take down ideas on how they combine different plants.
Yes, absolutely. And I make a point of looking at commercial gardens or public gardens and private gardens too,
Yeah,
because you learn a lot just by figuring out why they did what they did, or what maybe they shouldn't have done. But
right, right. The do's and don'ts. I just want to give you kudos for starting, knowing that you had a business idea, going, this might be something that could work. And then actually going to your small business administration office and going, okay, help me with the business plan. Do you know that 70% of small business owners don't do that? And
mm,
that's why, within 10 years, 92% of them have failed
mm.
because there's no plan, So I kudos for doing that and for really narrowing down like a niche, like not just taking care of somebody's yard, but really honing in on exactly what you do and then owning that space. So what that process was that hard building a business plan?
It was a little time consuming because it was obviously something I was not familiar with doing. And
Right.
they really do, just like you said, want you to think about who really could be your target customer.
Mhm.
How would you differentiate yourself from anyone else? How would you reach them? What strengths do you have to bring to that process? Where do you think you need to develop, and improve your weaknesses. And
Yeah.
so, even if you never really implement the business plan as written, that thought process was just invaluable.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that's huge. I call that, I'm actually giving a talk on this next week. And part of it is knowing your people, when you start a business. And I call it the gap, the God appointed purpose. You have your people that you're going to be serving, but you want to know what their pain point is. What is their problem and how do you solve that? What solution? How do you stand in their gap and be that person that gets them to the other side? So you identified, hey, everyone has that area in the yard that they just don't know what to do with. Everything else may be going gangbusters, but this one area I just have struggle with. So tell me, what in Virginia, and it might be different than here in California, what is the biggest problem that you see in someone's yard? What do you deal with the most?
Oh gosh, that might be a little hard to pinpoint because properties can be so different.
Yeah.
But I think an overarching problem is always a lack of unity
Mm,
in the yard. There tends to be a lot of plants that are scattered,
mhm,
so they're not grouped, so that contributes to a lack of unity. A lot
mhm,
of little beds, as opposed to thinking bigger and
mm,
more impactful.
mhm.
Uh, particularly around trees. We have a lot of lonely trees that are stuck in the lawn instead of maybe being part of a bed and grouped with other
Mhm.
things. So, in terms of just general approach, and then the other probably major problem is the wrong plant in the wrong place.
Yeah,
So, and they might not have planted it, but
right.
there'd be a plant that is too big for that space, so they're
Mhm,
always having to prune it and trim it, and it's frustrating for them. Uh,
mhm.
and so I think by kind of rethinking what they might want to plant and grouping things to make it easier to take care of,
Yes.
it brings a lot more satisfaction to the time they spend in their yard.
Yeah, the gripping, I think I told you when we talked earlier that my husband and I, we were taking care of the lawn and we had roses out front, and that was back in 2012. we decided, why are we live in California, it never rains. Why are we spending all this water just watering a yard that we never use, a lawn? So we tore our lawn out. We tore out our entire front yard and we turned it into what we call a community garden with raised beds and flowers and all of that. And I want to ask you this. When we were designing that garden and it came time to go get the plants, I had the job of going to get the plants. And I go to Lowe's, I went to Home Depot, I went to Armstrong's, which is our local nursery, and I loaded down my car with all the lovely plants. It was so fun. I was so happy. I just had all my happy plants in the back of my car, went dropped them off at home, went back, got more, and I was so happy. But when I put them in the yard, the guy who was helping us design it says, oh no, Miss Cindee, too many plants, because I wanted to see the full effect all at once. I didn't want to be patient and wait for things to grow and mature and blend together. So do you see that a lot? I know that was a long way around, but do you see that a lot? Like people just planting too much in one spot?
Uh, that certainly happens, but what I see is people not planting enough for the most
Mm.
part.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I guess because um, they tend to go for a little bit of a spotty dotty approach,
Mm,
and so they'll only have one of everything, and
mm,
uh, I it might be better if they put in a few too many plants, easier to take out than to add later on, I think. So,
right.
but certainly people are not proficient at understanding what the ultimate size of a plant would be, and
Mm,
uh, but neither are a lot of landscapers, and that's why people buy these houses with overgrown shrubs.
right,
So
right.
it is a challenge for people to they want it to look good right away,
Yeah.
and uh, but maybe Cindy, part of it is by the time they call me, they've probably already ripped out a lot of stuff.
Yeah. They're just frustrated, just get rid of it all.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I always laugh because I said that Jesse, who was our man who helped us plant everything, I said he turned into an instant marriage therapist because my husband was there going, there's too many plants. And I'm like, going, oh, but they're so happy and beautiful together. And, we had to reach this compromise and they just like thinned it way down. But in the end, when you do group things, I always say, group in odds, ones, threes, five, sevens, just group them together. It comes out so beautiful. I just love that. So we talk about grouping a little bit. Do you have a number pattern that you go with?
Well, just like you said, you do the human eye prefers the odd number, and
Mhm.
in a say a more naturalistic type planting style. Now, obviously, somebody who's preferring a very formal style, will have maybe more even numbers on flanking a path, for example. But
Mhm.
within a bed, odd numbers tend to work the best. So you might only have one statement plant, but
Mhm.
the other plants are going to be 3 or 5 or 7, just like you said, depending on the size of the plant and the height
Mhm.
that you're working with.
Yeah, a lot of factors in there. Now you work with a lot of native plants. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I tell people that we are all on a gardening journey because
Mhm.
all of us are learning all the time. And
Mhm.
as I got more information, starting maybe about 10 years ago, about how native plants not only are beautiful, but they function in the landscape differently than a non-native plant
Mm.
does. That I started to rethink my own gardening practices.
Mhm.
And the more I learned, the more I realized how beneficial native plants are, as I said, beautiful. And so the focus of my practice now is natives. And if it's clear to me somebody is not as interested as learning about natives as I want to to talk about, then that I might not be the best person for them.
Right,
You
right.
know, and I try very hard to not be dogmatic about it. I'm not going to tell them rip out your camellias. I have beautiful camellias in a courtyard garden,
Yeah,
uh, but I explain the difference between harmful non-native plants and benign non-native plants, and then explain how beneficial native plants are. And
right.
when that light bulb goes off, like, oh, I didn't know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like I have succeeded.
Yes. Tell me a little bit what harmful versus beneficial. I haven't heard that before with native plants. So what could be harmful?
Yeah, so like a harmful non-native plant, and are the kind that either send out chemicals in the soil to prevent
Hmm.
other things from growing.
Oh, interesting.
They seed so heavily that they spread into our natural areas, and because they typically lack predators, they take over a
Mm,
natural area to the detriment of our native plants.
mm.
So, you know, that's the term people generally use for invasive plants.
Right, right.
That they don't have the checks and balances, and so they run amok
Yeah.
and they upset the ecosystem.
Mm,
And part of the problem is that it's the very rare, very few non-native plants can serve as host plants
mm.
for our insects, our butterflies, our bees, our wasps, all our pollinators.
Oh,
And so people ask me, they say, well, I have this beautiful plant and I get a lot of butterflies on it. And I said, yes, that's good, but
yeah.
you're just feeding the adults. If you
Oh,
don't have plants that their caterpillars can feed on, you are not helping the next generation. And
oh.
that's the difference between putting in a native plant that's beautiful and can attract butterflies and a non-native plant that can only attract butterflies.
Oh, that is so fascinating. I had never even thought about that before.
Mhm.
Just how it affects the whole ecosystem in your garden and bringing up the future generations, as you said. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Tell me a little bit about you have a nonprofit called Vital Natives, and I want to know a little bit more about that.
Well, that's the name of the organization that is still very much in its fledgling state, but that's what I would consider to be my education arm,
Okay.
ultimately a funding arm to help provide scholarships for people wanting to study native plants, maybe fund native plant garden projects, and kind of extend my reach through more concrete support as opposed to just me being a talking head somewhere. So,
Right, right. I love that. That's really just submersing yourself into the community, right? And doing more than just communicating, you're connecting and this providing this full circle service. That's really beautiful. And so it's in fledgling, and do you have a plan to build it out, or is it just kind of as it comes, or
yes, well, I am developing that because it's
Mhm.
important if one is going to set up something of that nature to do it right and have the financial aspect secure
Right,
and the
right.
legal aspect. So I'm in the process of kind of outlining its next step. So right now it's strictly kind of an educational arm,
Right.
and I'm working on getting the foundation in place to expand it from there.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. I love it. I love that all this has taken place after your full career, 25 years of being an attorney, and look at this now. I mean, that's beautiful. Can you tell me, as we kind of wrap it up, what is next in Miss Sharon's life? What exciting things do you have coming up?
Yeah, well, so I currently am very active with a chapter of Wild Ones that I started, which is a
Okay.
national organization that promotes native plants. But when I feel like the chapter is a little farther along, what I'd really love to do is to reach out to other professionals in my community in the landscaping profession, whether they are the lawn guys, whether they're the designer people, and see if we can connect and see if I can't offer them information that they might not have been aware of, and help them maybe rethink some of their practices. I'd also love to reach out to developers who put in a fairly standard array of plants that are consistently non-native, but it's what they know and it's what
Right.
whoever they're working with is providing them. So I'd love to get them to rethink. Why not put in a very good substitute that will do the same thing for you, but is also native and beneficial, and market that as part of your development.
Yeah.
So I would love to take that step as well.
Yeah, fascinating. I think the whole developer ideas, because they go with your Texas privets and your boxwoods and just your standard items, but to actually have what's native to that community, and what an advertising item, marketing
Yes,
item for them to promote.
yes.
So really fascinating, what you're doing, your work, and I just applaud you for it and wish you so much success with Garden Vitals and your Vital Natives nonprofit as it grows and develops and all of that. And just want to thank you, Sharon, for just giving us your time today. And I took down some notes, things that I'm going to incorporate in my garden. So thank
Great.
you.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity and applaud your efforts to help small businesses and provide inspiration to others.
Right. Do you have a website, or if anybody wanted to see some of your work, where they can go, or Instagram, or where can we find you?
Yes, so I do have a website and it's Garden Vitals. So that's Vitals, Garden Vitals, all one
Oh,
word, .com.
okay.
And I am also on Instagram and on Facebook.
Okay, as Garden Vitals on both of those?
Yes, yes,
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so we can go and see you there as well, give you a follow. So
yes.
thank
And
you.
I do have some nice native plant resources on the website for
Oh,
people.
oh, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Sharon. And you have a beautiful day. And for those of you listening, so please subscribe. We have a new podcast out every week, just interviewing amazing women like Sharon. So thank you. Take care and have a beautiful week.